Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football, along with Brian LaBelle. I am Harper LaBelle. This is our NFL preseason 2025. This will be our last show, Brian. We're not going to do any more. The preseason is officially over, although there's still some loose ends that need to be tied up, and we're going to discuss that a little bit today. There are cuts that are taking place right as we speak. You're going to give us an update on that. Final rosters have not been to the point where we know exactly who everybody's going to be on anyone's roster, especially when you put a developmental squad together. But it's getting real close. They're down to the wire with that. We'll go over the preseason results and we'll give a prediction on who you think will end up winning the divisions of each of the six divisions and the two conferences together. We'll get to that in just a minute. Before we do, let's thank our buddies at ZipRecruiter who are assisting with the program here today. Excuse me while I put my glasses on. If you're looking for a great candidate, if you're looking for a top recruit, if you're looking for a needle in a haystack, please get a hold of the good folks at ZipRecruiter. They can help you find amazing candidates, top qualifiers, great resumes. They're going to put all that together for you to make your hiring decision as easy as possible. You can visit with ZipRecruiter immediately after you post a job. They have powerful matching technology, which starts to show the qualified people and get them into your eyes, into your vision as quickly as possible. You can invite to apply with some people if you like them enough to where you think that they might want to come in for an interview or you want to bring them in and take that next step. ZipRecruiter allows you to do all of those simple but yet very complicated processes of trying to put the right person in the right place at the right time to help you out. There are other hiring sites, you know it and we know it, but we're asking you to ditch all of them and work with ZipRecruiter. They know what you're looking for. They know the top recruits that are out there, and they're going to put them in front of you. For a free exclusive offer that ZipRecruiter has, go to ziprecruiter.com/audio, AUDIO. That's ziprecruiter.com/audio. It is the smartest way to hire, and we thank them for all that they've done to help out 100 Yards of Football. Brian, there's a lot of things going on right now. There are hold-ins, holdouts, whatever you want to call them. There are some new developments that have taken place since the last time we were on the air. Why don't you give us an update?
Yeah, the big three was McLaurin, Hendrickson, and Parsons, where Terry got paid. I think he got exactly what he wanted. I think he was looking right at the $30 to $32 million range. He's going to get a nice little 3-year, $96 million buff, so he got exactly what he was asking for. Trey Hendrickson, he's going to about double his salary this year. He's going to be making about $30 million for the Bengals, which based on his production, I think he kind of earned it. But if you look at Cincinnati's roster as a whole right now, we were talking about this, 50% of their roster is going to 5 guys right now. It's going to Brown, Burrow, Chase, Higgins, and Hendrickson. So you got to field another 48 guys. It's hard to do that when half your money is already committed there. And then the third one, obviously Micah Parsons still, they could be close to a deal. They could be nowhere near. I have no idea. Some of the antics, I guess you want to call it, that Parsons had this past weekend because he's playing the Falcons. He's laying down on the sidelines. He's teasing. There was a Falcons fan like, hey, why don't you come to Atlanta? And he's gave him the, Jerry Jones was talking about the phone call thing on a podcast earlier this week. I want to say it was Michael Irvin. And Parsons hits him with this, like, hey, go ahead and ring the line because obviously Jerry's not doing it. So I don't know. It's getting kind of ugly there. And for Dallas, the big issue they have is they're the Thursday openers. They have less time than anyone else to get these deals done and to make sure Mike is on the field come week 1.
Well, you mentioned Micah as a guy that hasn't received yet what he was looking for. Let's just take Trey Hendrickson just for a moment, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What would happen, or what do you think might occur if they're 3-7 at one point in the season, and he's got 2 sacks, and he's nursing an injury? Does he get booed in Cincinnati at home on a Monday night game, for example? If that $31 million, his salary right now, the cap hit will be $31,666,668 to be official. It's 11.34. Now that's subject to change. And the reason for that, folks, is simply because they're $4.6 million over the cap right now. Their total cap availability is $4.9 million, and they're 4.6 over the cap right now, which is 19th. They're 17th in terms of their cap space and 19th in terms of how much they have remaining at this moment. And that's going to have to move around a little bit. All right, there's probably going to have to cut somebody or restructure somebody's contract and move it to a signing bonus. There are a lot of ways to make that money appear again to where you're in the positive. But they've overspent. And right now, I'm just wondering if Trey Hendrickson will get cheered like Reggie White did when he held out with Philadelphia in 1990. The place erupted. They cheered louder for Reggie than they did the rest of the team. They were so glad to have him back. But does that turn on you if he has a poor season?
I think so, but I think it kind of turns on everybody because if they're 3-7, that means Burrow's probably not playing as well as they would like. Chase probably isn't playing as well as they'd like, and same for Higgins, same for everybody else. The team it's not really a secret that they haven't been a very good defensive team since the Super Bowl, and that was 4 or 5 years ago. So it's like I said, it's hard to field a roster when half of your money is going to 5 different people, but they feel like at least in Burrow's position, at least in Chase's position, certainly in Hendrick's position, I think you could argue all 3 of those guys are top 3 at the position. So they're paying them as such, which makes sense. It's just unfortunate that once the rookie contracts are up and you get to you kind of play hardball with the agents, with everybody else, because now you got to pay these guys to keep them around. And they did that, but it's the consequences of that are, all right, we got to find a way to have 48 other usable players on this roster that we can sub in and out and feel comfortable on any given week. Like you said, if Hendrickson is banged up, I don't really feel like they would feel very good going into that week on any capacity. The offense is probably thinking we're going to have to score 40 points just to have a chance. So he's a gigantic Band-Aid that covers up a large cut that is this defense, at least for now. Maybe they have a really good draft. Maybe they bring some guys in the offseason. I don't know. But as of right now, Burrow and Chase and Higgins make this team go. So that's why they're making what they're making.
Let's go to Washington. Terry McLaurin, nice pay raise for him. $25,500,000 exactly will be the number that has been posted, at least right at this moment. That's 9.13% of their entire cap. Here's an interesting thing that I thought. The Washington Commanders last year had more money than anybody else. This year it was the Patriots, at least the top seed at that time, if you want to call it a seed. Because they didn't spend a whole lot of money last year, they're the 6th highest total cap number in the league right now. They didn't spend all their money. It gets pushed into the following year, which is now. And after this signing now, they're $7.7 million over the cap. So in 2 years, they've gone from having more money than they could possibly spend to being they got to make some moves. Give me your thoughts here on McLaurin and his. He's the number 2 paid guy, and by the way, Hendrickson is as well. Darren Payne at 26.1 and Terry McLaurin at 25.5. The reason I bring this up, Brian, is they're on the clock, but they still got 3 more years before they have to take care of Jaden Daniels, and make him the top paid guy on the team. They're really living on borrowed time at the moment. But give me your summary or recap of what Washington's in right now.
Well, for everybody, it's kind of, if you hit on that quarterback spot, you'll get a top guy like Jaden Daniels, like the Bengals did with Joe Burrow. You got a small window. We got 3 or 4 years. The first year, you don't really expect much, but in Washington's case, it was the opposite. They were the 2nd best team in the NFC last year. So the idea is, hey, if we can win before we have to pay Daniels and maybe replace some guys, because a lot of it becomes once, I think they do have guys that can move around. They do kind of mix and match a little bit. They still have their draft picks. So obviously, as long as you can take care of business there, you're going to be okay. But the idea is, while you have them here and you have them on rookie deals and you can manage everything, you try to win as much as you can. The only problem is the Philadelphia Eagles play in the same division, so it's going to make it very, very difficult for them to, get over that hump. But I mean, they're good. They're going to compete. Again, they can play with anybody. But I think McLaurin had the rapport he and Daniels had was tremendous. Terry had arguably his best season as a pro last year. He had the most consistent year at quarterback, though, so you could also argue that. But I think behind closed doors, Jaden Daniels was just as much like, hey, we need to get this done as Terry McLaurin was. I think that's a huge reason why you have the money getting paid out and Terry getting exactly what he asked for. Because of that, it's hard to find good receivers to surround yourself with, especially with the young quarterback. And Washington seems to think they did that. And they think he's worth $32 million. He thought he's worth $32 million. So that's what they paid him.
Well, they got close to it at least. And even though they didn't hit 32, his cap value is a little lower than that. He's at 25.5. It's just hard for an average guy that wants to go to a ball game to cheer for a guy who's screaming that 13 million, 15 million, 22 million isn't enough. I need more. I get it. It's just a very interesting perspective. And I'm just wondering again, if he has an off year, if he drops a couple of passes, what the Boo Birds would be like for him. I hope he doesn't. I don't want Hendrickson to fail. I don't want any of these guys to fail. I'm just saying that, they asked for a lot. They got it. And now a lot, in my opinion, would be expected of them.
Yeah, I mean, look, that happens. The magnifying glass gets a little bit closer. The sun's going to shine a little bit brighter into it. That's just how it is. So if you're going to be one of the higher paid guys, you have to perform, and it seems to be consistent everywhere you go. NFL fans are a very passionate bunch, so it's not really surprising. But I think at certain instances, you have maybe some bad ownership, which I know Washington's kind of clean house in that regard. But maybe you have fans that are more so against the owners, more so against the coaches, whatever the case might be. But I think right now everything there it's pushing up daisies, right? They're happy everywhere. Everyone's glad with where they're at. They feel like they're only going to get better, and you keep Terry McLaurin. He's a big piece of that, and it makes sense. Obviously, I don't think they wanted to have to bump him up now. They said, "Hey, we paid you what we thought was fair already," but it happens, and this is where we're at. So. I still think they'll have a good year. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. They could make some moves. Again, they brought in Deebo Samuel, too, was a huge cap hit. But if they need to, move on from him, they could probably find a way to do so in the near future if they got to pay Jaden Daniels. But I think they like the team. They got a lot of guys that can touch the football and make plays. And, I think they believe that they're better than they were last year. And I think Super Bowl aspirations make a lot of sense for this roster.
Well, you mentioned guys that are happy where they're at. Micah Parsons, who's on our left here in the picture we got, is not happy with where he is. 24 million. You mentioned him earlier. Here's where the cap standings are for Dallas. 301 total cap dollars were in the kitty, so to speak. Dak Prescott is making 50.5 of that. 18.9%. I haven't looked at every team. I know that Aaron Rodgers and there's a few other quarterbacks, obviously, that are going to rival that number, but Mike is the number 2 guy right now. He's set to make 24 million this year, and they have not made a decision with him yet. They have 5.1 million in cap space. I'm sure he's going to ask for every bit of that and then some in terms of this final couple of days. Now it's already Tuesday, and they're getting ready for tomorrow's a travel day.
Yeah. So the deal with him is we went over the numbers earlier. Parsons is one of the first guys we went over. We were doing the preseason shows. Is the Cowboys are a very middle to lower tier defense when they're anywhere from that 16 to 20 range as far as overall defensive rankings with him off the field, and then they're right there at the top with him on the field. So obviously he's a tremendous impact guy. They're in the same boat as Cincinnati though. You got Prescott, you got CeeDee Lamb, you got to pay these guys, and now Parsons wants his. So, it makes it really, really tough on Jerry because I think Micah, you could make the argument he's the best pass rusher in the NFL right now, just based on the numbers, based on the impact he has, based on everything he's done with the team, how good they are. Because we had the sample size with him on the field, with him off the field, and it's generally the same guys around him. But a little surprised. I thought this one might be the first one done, just because I think Jerry likes Micah. I think they want to keep Micah around. I know Jerry's very old school. He's made a point of that as far as the negotiations go, as far as everything that's taken place so far. But the sideline antics you saw this past weekend with Parsons, that doesn't happen for a guy that has, you know what I mean? Like, hey, we're close. We have a deal in the works. We're almost home as far as hammering this thing out. But like you said, they got the early game next week. So they got about 7 days to get this figured out. And I'm not sure what his practice schedule is. I'm not sure if he's doing off the field stuff, his own individual things. But at a certain point, you gotta get this done, or you gotta look to maybe move on. So balls in Jerry's court, I guess, as of right now.
This one's a little tougher because the differentiation in between the numbers, it's a slight hit, and I'm sure every Dallas Cowboy personnel staffer. Everybody who's upstairs in the front office is going, "What do you want, kid? We gave you we gave you more than you probably should have had a couple years earlier. And you're going to make 24. You're asking for 30. We're just not going to do that every year for a guy that says I want a 10% rate. Well, in this case, it'd be a 20% raise. It's tough to do, and it opens the floodgates, as I said since this began, for you to have to do it for every player that has the cachet and has the ability to renegotiate the way that Micah does, to make him happy. Maybe they don't want to keep him around. If he's been a cancer in the locker room before, they may not want him to be around. There's some things that we just don't know specifically right now, so we're speculating like anybody else would. But I think in probably the next 72 hours. I don't think anything will get done in the next day or two, and watch it probably get done. They're too busy cutting guys and trying to bring back either other guys that have been cut that they've had their eye on, putting their practice squad together, and managing that all around the cap. I think they're going to have to wait till that dust settles. You with me on that in terms of what the next step would be? I don't think it'll take place right away.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing is it's a distraction as far as, hey, are we gonna have Micah or not? Because if we don't have Micah Parsons, we might need to add a guy or two to just funnel into the pass rush. Because teams are making their final cuts right now. They're trying to finalize their rosters. Obviously, guys are going to get shuffled around. There'll be guys that are let go that someone else can say, hey, we need a guy at this position, or this guy can help us win right now. So I think obviously the final rosters have to be trimmed down, quote unquote, today, but you'll have guys shuffling and moving around over the course of the next 48 hours to get ready. Because again, next week, we got obviously this weekend off, but then the next week is game week. So guys got to come in. Yeah. They got to learn as much as the playbook, as much as the system as they possibly can in that time. And again, the Cowboys, I think they have to have contingency for if Micah isn't there, but they're also hoping he is. It just puts a little bit more pressure on, the GM and the scouting department. Everyone else who's out there says, hey, we got to be ready for both, which, it hinders you a little bit, but that's part of the process with everything that's going on here.
Absolutely. And then you think of, the head coach, the defensive coordinator, especially, and the edge rushing coach, or the outside linebacker coach is all going, what I don't know. Yeah. What are we going to do? Now he's under contract. This is a little bit different. He should be able to play for the entirety of the season, but you're not going to hold out for $24 million and not play, but what kind of effort is he going to give, and what else is he going to do in that locker room to where other guys may or may not play or want to join? That's a tough call. That's tougher to me than just giving him the money. Let's move on. Big news today all over the league with final cuts being made and the deadline. And you mentioned, where your roster is right now. There have been some trades that have taken place. Do you want to go over any of those right now? Wait a second. Let's stop. Before we even do that, if you look at People Magazine, or if you go to any website right now, my gosh, the National Enquirer is wanting to know more about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift's engagement. So I don't have a picture of it right now, but the two of them got engaged, and that's a bigger story for the rest of the world than what's happening in the NFL. Your thoughts here on the engagement?
Well, it certainly is for your average football fan. It's not going to be, as big a deal as some of these cuts. Guys are more worried about who's making the roster, who's our running back 3 right now. Are we going to keep this defensive back? What's our defensive line depth looking like? But for any non-football fan right now, that's probably the biggest news of the day. I don't really want to say, maybe wait a little bit, or maybe do it a little earlier, kind of stealing the thunder right now. But I don't think Kansas City's too worried about, who they got on the roster right now. I think they're pretty comfortable with the handful of guys they got at the top, Travis being one of them included. But you figured at some point this would kind of happen. Either that or they'd break up, but it went in the good direction. So, good for them, happy for them. Like I said, the real NFL people right now are worried about, hey, who's getting released where, who's available, who's our practice squad, who are we able to keep, contract negotiations, all that fun stuff. But it is a nice little break from all that, from the actual work. It's good to see some personal off the field stuff where, a couple people, moving up in life, and you wish them the best.
Well, for obvious reasons, the The relationship has transcended just football. There are other people that are talking about it. Obviously, her amazing success in the music industry and
Yep.
as an entertainer in whole, it has been amazing. And his, obviously, from the NFL standpoint, I have no doubt he'll be a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
I have critiqued him before. I was hard on him in the Super Bowl. I know he's lost a couple of pounds and he's looking to be in better shape and all that kind of stuff. But his numbers last year were career lows in many respects. He had 3
Yeah.
touchdowns. He's never in his career had less than 4. So he touched that number. The previous year he had 5. So his last 2 years, even though he had 97 catches, his yards per catch is down to another career low, 8.5 for his career. His rookie year, he only had 67 receptions, but he averaged almost 13 yards a catch. So, for my opinion, yeah, go get married, do whatever. But if he's my teammate, dude, you got to block. And you got to play maybe on a special team. I know you never will. I'm just saying that you got to help us out. We got to win some ball games. And, if all I'm going to read about in the paper is, you at a concert or she's coming to the game, I need you to block.
Yeah.
Let's do some more blocking practice. Go ahead.
Well, I will say this. I think the whole team, based on the attitude there and the expectations, is if we're not at least in the AFC Championship game, it's kind of a bust. The whole offense, but Mahomes didn't have a great year last year. I know Rashee Rice, his injury was kind of a big deal. The running back situation was a mess. This team still made it to the Super Bowl. They were still very, very good. I don't even think they really even cared. They were kind of just going through the motions until maybe, early November. But, he turned it on then. Mahomes turned it on then. I think there's kind of a, hey, I know when I need to play my best. I know when I need to go 100%. I think the idea of, hey, I only need to go 70% of the reps against the Raiders at home, in week 3. And they understand that it's nice for the bettors and it's nice for the fantasy people when they score 38 points to beat the Raiders by 3 scores. But, hey, we'll beat them 24-21, and we're just as happy with that. Maybe it's not as good in the box score, but a win's a win, and that's all we really care about. And we just want we just want to be there in January and February. That's their end goal. So I think that's some of it. Also, he's getting a little older. He's been doing it for a long time. That's kind of a forgotten thing. Is Kelsey's been doing it for a long time, and
13 years. Yep.
Yeah, he's taking a lot of hits. He's been in the centerfold. A lot of those, I guarantee you there were plenty of Bill Belichick conversation that was saying, hey, if you can go low on that guy, in the playoffs, you can get him. If you can get him in the hip, kind of, don't hurt him, quote unquote, but hey, bang him up a little bit. That's I'm sure Travis was on the receiving end a lot of those hits from teams that said, hey, that's their best player, let's get rid of him. And I think he's kind of earned this. I don't want to call it a downturn, but where we're at now. But certainly a very good career if he were to call it here. Travis has done a great job, so he's put up the numbers. I still think he's going to be good this year. I think the Chiefs are still going to be good this year, so not really too worried about it.
Boy, it'll drive me bonkers. I'll want to switch TV off if every catch he makes is, I wonder if that's going to be the last one. Is this going to be the end of his career? Please stop. Just let him play, and let's not do Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers all over again. Since we've been on the air, Brian, Deshaun Watson was put on the 2025 PUP list, so he's going to miss at least 4 games. There's no surprise there.
Sure.
However, the Browns have about 425 quarterbacks in the room right now. You're going to drop it down. They did make a trade. Pickens ends up being traded. Yeah. So they're down to a couple, but Flacco will be the starter. And it looks like Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders are both going to be on the roster. Good for them that they made it.
Not really surprised there. I think the idea is this team isn't very good right now. Even if Shedeur or Dylan Gabriel were to start and have amazing rookie seasons and, flash in a pan sort of ordeal, this isn't really a playoff team, especially in that division, especially in that conference right now. So I think the idea is, hey, sit behind the guy Joe Flacco, who I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer, but he's a Hall of very good player based on his numbers. He's been doing it for a long time. He's still very, very good. Let him go out there, kind of show the blueprint of what it means to be an NFL quarterback, how to do it on a day-to-day basis, how to, compose yourself and operate. Because he's been on good teams. He's been on bad teams. He's had success with both. He was very good for them last year when he needed to be. I think it's a good situation. You sit them both down. You say, hey, Because again, you're in constant competition all year. If something happens to Flacco, obviously, or near the end of the year, the season's lost, you can get these guys some reps and feel comfortable with them behind the starting offensive line, which none of them really got to play behind in the preseason, where they could both stay healthy and be as effective as you want them to be. I think it's great, but there's no rush here. They're going to be a bad team. They know they're going to be a bad team. Let's build for the future, and let's maybe you win some games this year, maybe you develop some guys, but expectations in Cleveland now aren't particularly high, and they really haven't been for the last 20 plus years.
Yeah, you take the rest of that division and just try to split with those teams alone. That would be a success. That'd be a plus, but we'll see as this goes. But at least their quarterback room is full. Speaking of quarterbacks, the Saints named Spencer Rattler their starting quarterback. Taysom Hill is on the PUP list as well, and will miss at least the first 4 games. I'm not expecting him to be the starting quarterback, but I do want him to start, at least be on the field when he's playing against the Falcons. That guy just amazing over the last decade or so of how well he has played. He would be in the Hall of Fame if he played as well as he did against every other team that he did against Atlanta. Give me some of your thoughts about some of the other movement that's going on right now. Anything in particular stand out?
Well, that's a big deal. Obviously, you want to see who'd start for the Saints. I don't think it tilts the win-loss over under very much in either direction, because again, the rest of this roster just I don't really see it. Especially, I mean, the quarterback position obviously, but they're kind of getting older. They got some guys like Alvin Kamara. He's taken a lot of hits over the last 5, 6, 7 years. He's done a lot for that offense. Chris Olave wasn't very healthy last year. Derek Carr retiring obviously kind of put them in a really tough spot. But I'm interested to see the developments with the Giants, to see who the quarterback is there. I think right now Russell Wilson is your guy, but Jackson Dart had a very good preseason. Jameis Winston had a very good preseason.
Yeah.
So it might just be one of those things where Russell's the guy. If anything goes wrong, you feel comfortable throwing either of those guys into the fold. I think it's kind of the same situation there, though, that we were talking about in Cleveland. In that division that they're in right now, I mean, again, imagine you got to play the Commanders twice, you got to play the Cowboys twice, you got to play the Eagles twice. Even if you split with Dallas, I don't think you beat the Eagles. I don't think you beat the Commanders. Maybe you get lucky, but I don't really think this is a playoff team. It'd be very, very, very difficult to make the playoffs finishing last in your division. I think the idea is let's stay healthy. Let's develop our guys. We got a really good receiver. We got a guy at quarterback in Jackson Dart we think is the future. We don't have to throw him into the fold right now. We can kind of let him sit back and learn. Russell Wilson, obviously his numbers have fallen off, but he's a professional. He's won at the highest level. He's hoisted a Lombardi. He knows what he's doing. And, kind of learn the day-to-day stuff and learn how to play the position from him. Jameis Winston has been very good and very bad both at times. Maybe you could pick his brain as well. But, other than that, we'll see. Guys are going to bounce around over the next 48 hours. We'll have probably a finalized rosters realistically within the next 4 or 5 days. But that's where we're at right now as far as starting quarterbacks. Everything else is kind of settled. We kind of know where we're at. Maybe Indianapolis between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, but they've already named Daniel Jones the starter. So unless he comes out playing horribly, I think that's sort of where we're at right now.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with all of that. And just, for me to sum it up, there's going to be a couple of trades probably.
Yeah.
I've seen it more with other teams than here in Atlanta, where a guy that gets cut that you kind of had an eye on, whether it be in the draft or with free agency, and he doesn't make it on Team X, but you might want to bring him in, especially after camp if you've seen him play a time or two. There are some of those stories, and those are good, making lemonade out of lemons for a lot of these guys. Hey, I was in a position I wasn't going to play, or I wasn't going to make that team. I go somewhere else and they have a need. Next thing you know, I'm on the roster, and I might even be a starter. It just depends on where you go. But those are some of the good things that can happen out of this next 48 hours for a lot of guys and for many. And I've been there. You get a tap on the shoulder. You're asked to turn in your playbook, and you may never play football again. It's not an easy day, and you've gone from a 80, 90, 95-man roster in training camp where there's 4 or 5 guys at every position to where now there's 2.
Yeah.
And there might be a third depending on developmental. So you're going to lose a lot of guys, and it's a tough day for everyone to practice, but you got to get through it. It happens every year. It's the same thing. It's like an anniversary date. you make it, you look around, you go, all right, this is our group. This is who we got. So, anyways, with that being said, Brian, let's take a quick look. I'd like to go over the standings in the preseason. This is a preseason show, so let's just go over. If you don't mind, I'll start on the AFC East. I'll read off the roster, how each team did and performed, and then I want to give you a chance to give an overview of, they surprised me, and then who you think might end up with the division title at the end of the season. Miami goes 2-0-1. New England is 2-1. Buffalo Bills are 1-2, and so are the New York Jets. Tell me what impresses you about the AFC East.
I think the biggest question mark has been the same for 2 years now. I think, can Tua Tagovailoa stay on the field? He's had some serious injuries. He's had, you've seen just the drop off in Tyreek Hill's production and Jalen Waddle's production, the run game, everything they have there. The team, when he's on the field, is electric, and then when he's hurt, it's hard to watch. I think Buffalo is still the best team in that division. I think the Patriots could be annoying, could be a nuisance for them. I wouldn't be surprised if they can squeak out anywhere from 6 to 7 to 8 wins. I don't think they're quite there yet, but I'm pretty high on Drake May. The Jets are, the Jets are the Jets. I think Justin Fields could do something there and make them exciting a little bit. I think the run game is going to be decent. The offensive line is still kind of iffy. The defense is still pretty good. They got some guys up front that are very solid there. But I think as it stands right now, I think it's Buffalo's division to lose. I think they probably are the Super Bowl favorite out of the AFC for a lot of people right now. I think Miami could compete with them a little bit, but it just comes down to health.
AFC North, what a tough division to win. I mean, you really earn it if you win this division. Baltimore at 3-0, Cleveland 3-0, Pittsburgh was 2-1, and the Bengals were 1-2.
I think this is still Baltimore's division. I just, I like Cincinnati. They got all the star power at the top. We talked about it, but I just think Baltimore's a much deeper team. I think Derrick Henry is still, what he's able to do, and I think he's in year 10 or 11 now. What he's able to accomplish, how many hits he takes, how many carries, and he just keeps on trucking. He's still going to be a top 4 or 5 guy in the league as far as touchdowns, as far as yards, as far as everything. This team is a force to be reckoned with, especially at home late in the season. They're better than Pittsburgh right now. Obviously, they're better than Cleveland. I think they're better than Cincinnati. I think they're the best team. Cincinnati could make some noise. It could be a playoff team, but it's the Ravens' division to lose.
Yeah. AFC South, Tennessee 2-1, Houston also at 2-1. The Colts were 1-2. Jacksonville was winless. They were 0-2-1.
I'm excited to watch Cam Ward play football. I don't think the Titans will be very good. I think the fact he's one of the few young guys that's actually, they're going to throw him into the fold and say, hey, let's win some games, learn on the fly, take your lumps, which I kind of like that. I think they need to give him the whole year, though. I don't think they can sub him in and out like some of these other teams do. Just let it ride, let him figure it out, try to keep him healthy as much as you can. But this division's kind of a mess because the Texans, obviously there were a lot of people that thought the Texans could make some noise, maybe potentially go to the Super Bowl last year. But CJ Stroud, that sophomore slump, he kind of fell off a little bit. They did have some injuries. They have some injuries right now. Joe Mixon's not going to be healthy for the first month. So I think Nick Chubb is the guy there for at least the first 4 games. But I still think it's the Texans' division to lose. I think this is kind of a make or break year for Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. I think he needs to – I think I need to see more flashes out of him. The Colts, I love Jonathan Taylor. I think the defense is good. They got 2 quarterbacks, but they don't really have any right now. It's just it is what it is, and it's such an important position at this level, and they need a guy that can lead. I think they believe Daniel Jones is the guy right now. I think Anthony Richardson is more talented, but they just don't believe he's the leader in the locker room as of right now.
Here's something to take into consideration. Yes, it's the preseason. Nothing matters. It's important, but it doesn't matter. None of these things count. None of it carries over. But no team gave up fewer points in the preseason than the Houston Texans. They only gave up 30. Their point differential was plus 26. They scored 56, which isn't a lot. But their defense, even with their third stringers in, they shined. AFC West, Brian, Denver at 3-0. The LA Chargers played that extra game, the Hall of Famer. They were 2-2. And the Raiders were 0-2-1, and Kansas City was 0-3. Let me start by just saying, Kansas City fans, I don't think there might be about an 8-year-old who wants to criticize him but I think the parents, grandparents, his friends, nephews, everybody in the family is going to go, you better be quiet, kid, because you have no idea how good it is in our little town right now as Chiefs fans.
I think it's just nitpicking at this point, right? It's like the Patriots if they had a bad preseason. Oh, during their run, is Brady falling off a little bit? Is the team bad? Oh man. But I mean, we were talking about earlier. This team, I mean, it seemed like last year this team was going through the motions until week 5 or 6 of the regular season. Obviously, I don't really think they care much about the preseason. I think Andy Reid, I think he likes to have his guys dressed. He wants a couple reps here and there, but it was very minimal. I think the idea is let's just warm up and get the game sense down. Let's just get back in the swing of things. But they've played so much more extra football than everyone else over the last 5 or 6 years. I think they're okay. Broncos could be very good. They could be strong. They could make a push for this division. I don't know if they're quite there yet, but if Bo Nix plays well, I like that team. I think they got a really good defense. They got a lot of depth. And remember, they still don't have a ton of money. They're still getting that Russell Wilson contract off the books. They're still trying to figure all that out, and they're still competing. Give them another year or two where they can bring in some more guys, some more talent. They got a pretty good receiver room. I think they, a lot of people were kind of dogging Sean Payton for, maybe faking how happy he was that they got Bo Nix. But, I mean, everything's worked out. He looks great in this scheme. He looks great out there. I think right now they're the second best team of the division. The Chargers obviously could change that. I think they got enough talent to do so if they can stay healthy, if Herbert can stay healthy. But I think the Raiders are still kind of building. Well, they'll maybe hopefully find their quarterback. Maybe they believe Geno's the guy. But I still think the Chiefs are the best team in the division. I think this is going to be a fun division. I think there's 3 really good teams that could make the playoffs, and I wouldn't be shocked at all. So I still think it's the Chiefs' division to lose.
Yeah, and I'm just throwing this number out there. I mentioned the defense for Houston giving up only 30 points. Baltimore gave up 32. Denver gives up 35.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, the Chiefs give up 82 points in the 3 games that they played. So that's obviously a concern, but I think they're not going to worry about it. I don't think they will at all. Let's go to the NFC now. Start in the East. New York Giants. How about that? 3-0 for the Giants.
Yeah.
Eagles go 2-1. Dallas goes 1-2. Commanders go 0-3. I think you could say the same thing about the Commanders as you did with Kansas City, although a little bit different. They don't have the same resume, obviously. They don't have all the diamonds on their fingers, but I think the Commanders would be a team where Dan Quinn was going, okay, today, or at least after the game that they played on Saturday, that, hey, now we turn it on. We're going to cut a few guys, and then now it's time. We're turning it on now. We've got to get after it.
Yeah, if I'm a Giants fan, take a picture of that. Make that your screensaver for the year, because I think that might be the only time.
Just block out where it says pre, and then just say the season standings right now. You would love for that to be the case.
Yeah, that might be the only time you're going to see that win percentage at 1,000 and at the top of the division.
They scored 107 points.
They had a really good preseason, but they had, I mean, Jameis Winston's a starting quarterback. Jackson Dart should be a starting quarterback. They're putting up their 1B and 1C players up against, teams' third stringers. So there's that. But hey, they played well. They did what they were supposed to do, right? But I think right now, this is the Eagles' division still. I think the Commanders are right on their heels. Maybe that NFC title game was a little more lopsided than what they would have liked, but they had a couple of regular season meetings that were very, very close, very, very good games. I'm very high on the Commanders. I still think the Eagles, they'll go as Hurts and Saquon go. More so Saquon, I think, right now, but that defense is good enough to where they can compensate as well. There's not really a weakness on the Eagles roster right now. I'd say the Commanders are right there too, but I think the Eagles are a little stronger in the defensive front. They're a little stronger in the offensive line front. I think right now you maybe take Jaden Daniels is right behind Jalen Hurts as far as, his reputation and what he's done as far as winning. I think the Cowboys have a chance maybe to squeak into the playoffs. I think a lot of it depends on whether or not Micah Parsons is there. We talked about him earlier. I think the Giants right now, though, again, like we said, this kind of rebuild, kind of retool, get healthy, get everything right and move on for the future. But I like Philadelphia. I think Washington's a playoff team. I think this is one of the few divisions where you look at it and say, yeah, there's definitely one of these two teams is probably going to be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Well, I mentioned the AFC North being a incredibly competitive and tough division where you earn it if you win it. I'm going to say the NFC North is just about there, and the only reason I say just about is I'm not sure whether or not the Chicago Bears have arrived. They're 2-0-1. Green Bay went 2-1. Minnesota and Detroit were 1-2 and 1-3 respectively. Give me your thoughts here on the North.
I think how many injuries the Lions have last year in the playoff game? Are they like what 30
2 or
guys?
300. They
Yeah,
were pulling guys out of Foot Lockers and truck depots and
yeah,
anywhere you could find somebody who could run had a chance to make the Detroit Lions the following week and be a
yeah.
starter.
They're pulling guys with jerseys out of the stands every week. I mean, it was tough. I mean, that team was really, really good. They had a ton of talent. They looked unstoppable for the first 2.5 months of the season. Then the injury bug kind of caught them. The defense obviously fell off. Hutchinson's injury was brutal. That was tough. But you know, the best ability is availability. As long as everybody's available on this roster, I think they're still the best team in the NFC North. The Packers, people aren't really talking about the Packers. I think Jordan Love's very good. I think the Packers are good. I think they had a pretty decent draft, but just what the Vikings and the Lions were able to do last year, I don't know if you can replicate that. The defense is very, very good. I think the Vikings are going to the same style. They're going to run the ball a lot. They're going to chew up clock, throw the ball to Justin Jefferson. You're going to be just fine. JJ McCarthy, I think that's the biggest question mark. As crazy as it sounds, is he going to be able to put up the same production that Sam Darnold did? You know, that's kind of the staple right now. So he's going to be good as Sam Darnold. Who would have thought me saying that 2 years ago? But I mean, this is a team that what 14 games last year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to think about. This was the toughest division in football. The Bears are, I think they're at the bottom until they show me something different. They got a ton of talent, especially at the receiver position. They got so much talent there. They got two guys that are tight end that could be starters just about anywhere else. I like Caleb. I think he's got to. Maybe they're not the best team in the division. Maybe they just missed the playoffs, but he's got to show me something this year. You know, I need to see higher completion percentage. I just see more yards and you see more touchdowns, fewer turnovers, which he kind of cleaned it up there for a little bit. But this is a 3-horse race. The Lions could win it, and I wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't bat an eye. The Vikings could. And I'd say, yeah, they're a very good roster, and that's probably because McCarthy played well. Packers could win it easily as well, and I wouldn't be shocked depending on how healthy the Lions are. But I think this would be a fun division. I think if you are a fan of any of these teams, it's going to be very stressful because those division games are going to mean a lot, especially if you're not losing a lot of games like last year. But it's going to be hard to go against those guys in Ford Field. I like Jared Goff. I like the running back duo they got. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Laporta, Hutchinson. If they're healthy, I think they're the best team in the division.
Let's skip to the West real quick. The Rams were one possession away from upsetting Philadelphia in the cold and, in a playoff game. They're 2-1, along with San Francisco and Arizona in the division, and then the Seahawks go 1-1-1. I think San Francisco went through something similar, but not identical, of course, to what Detroit did. They just had a bunch of guys get hurt, and key components to that. I think they were so tightly cap sensitive because of some of the big salaries and all of those guys getting hurt that were making big money. You can't replace them.
Yeah.
You don't have the money to go out and get anybody that's even close to that. So that was an interesting facet. I'm not sure how Arizona is going to do. I just, they could be 9-7 or 7-9. They just kind of be there. They're going to be competitive. But give me your thoughts here for the division.
This one's a little tougher because I think you have San Francisco and Arizona going back last year, the year before. People are very high on them. A lot of people said, "Hey, Shanahan's going to get his Super Bowl finally. He's going to get the monkey off his back. He's going to climb the summit. He's going to figure it out." And again, they did just the injury bug. It happens. I think the roster is very, very good, but the issue becomes this: a lot of the guys that have been injury prone in the past, like the Christian McCaffreys, the Brandon Ayuk's, these are guys you still have on the team. They still have to produce. You still need them to play well. McCaffrey's still under contract. They just paid Ayuk. They shipped Deebo Samuel out of town to try to make some room because you got to pay Brock Purdy and you got George Kittle. They have talent. They have a ton of talent on this roster. The question is, it's much like with the Lions. Can you stay healthy? And, looking at the rest of the division, I think the Rams, I don't think McVay, I know we talk about it all the time. I think Sean McVay might be the best coach in the league because it doesn't matter who's healthy. It doesn't matter, what kind of weather they're playing in. They're playing at home on the road. I think they played the Eagles better than anybody not even just the playoffs, last 2 months of the season. They played Philadelphia closer than anybody did. They had a bunch of young guys come in. They had to replace Aaron Donald, and it didn't seem like they missed a beat on that defensive line. One of the best players to ever do it at his position, and they were just fine. Jared Verse comes in. He's tremendous. Everybody else is fantastic. we kind of got fooled as Falcons fans because we're looking at when you bring Raheem over here and you bring some of the guys who's like, hey, if we can kind of get that production, the plug and play, because they're getting 7, 8, 9 sacks out of guys that are, perennial backups and barely getting playing time elsewhere. It's just this team is amazing how they do. It's kind of the opposite of San Francisco. San Francisco is very top heavy, right? And then when their guys are healthy, they're very, very good. And the Rams are sitting here saying, we don't really care who we have on the field. We're going to get production from each and every guy on the 53 man.
Yeah, is McVay going to be like Pete Carroll when he's in his 70s? He's just going to be chewing gum and cheering and
clapping.
When we get something really good and we scored, he's got that. The glass is always half full in him, and I think it carries over. He's still young enough to where he can relate to the players, but he's also, he's really established himself as he's a good coach, as you mentioned, and he's got a long way to go, but he's one of the few that right now would be in my, who's going to break the record, Shula's record or Belichick, those guys that have won 300 games. Does he have a chance to do that? He's young enough. He's won enough so far to where, he might touch that. But Seattle, real quick on them, I think they're just silently and very confidently laying in the weeds, going, let's see what happens. Let's see if these guys kind of cannibalize themselves, and we might have something here.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not very high on Kyler Murray in Arizona. I like McBride. I think James Conner's been one of the most consistent players in the league.
Yeah, but then what, right? That's to me, you got to have a bunch of other guys, and I think Arizona is lacking there.
I think it's consistency. I think it starts at the quarterback position. You have a really good drive where the offense looks unstoppable, and you have a bad turnover, and then you sputter. And they could go down. They could score 14 points on the first 2 possessions. They look unstoppable, and they finish the game with 17.
And they punt. They punt the next 7 possessions.
It's just at some point, you can bring in all this talent. They've brought in the receivers. They brought in Hopkins. Trey McBride's been phenomenal for them. James Conner's been phenomenal. They like what they have. It's just at a certain point you're gonna have to look at the quarterback position and maybe question that. And it may not be that Kyler's bad, but he's not good enough to get it done in this division, in this conference right now. I like Seattle. Seattle's got a good receiver room. If they're healthy, I like their running back core. I like them a little less than I did last year. Kenneth Walker, I'm a guy I'm very high on, but I think their defense is still pretty good. I think they got a lot of talent. They're still a fairly young roster. If Sam Darnold can do anything like he did last year, I think this team is going to be good. They're going to make some noise. I still like the Rams in the division. I think if healthy, I think it's going to be if everyone's healthy, this is going to be a really tough division. Maybe not quite rivaling the NFC North, but I think it's a tough division. I think the Rams and the Niners are going to clash. I know obviously they hate each other, but you got the rivalry there. But the Seahawks, like you said, like lying in the weeds, they could be a team that comes in and maybe they stay healthier than everyone else, and that propels them into the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, let's finish up here. Since we live in Atlanta, we'll talk about the NFC South. And you got a very interesting, this is the only division during the preseason that had 3 winless teams. The Saints were 0-2-1. The Falcons and Carolina both go 0-3. If I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, am I not begging for someone to compete with us? I mean, there isn't anybody even close right now. And yes, I know your 3rd and 4th string played my 3rd and 4th string, but Tampa's last 4 or 5 years really been enough of a dominant force there to where we don't even have to win, 50%. We could have a losing record and still make it. That's how bad the rest of the teams in this division are. Yeah.
It makes you think and miss the Ryan Breeze and Cam Newton era, right? Where we had 3 teams competing with double-digit wins. It's just, I think the issue you have is Carolina's still young. I think, no pun intended there. I mean, with Bryce Young being the quarterback, but they a lot of youth on that roster that they're trying to infuse it with. Adam Thielen was their best receiver last year, and he's one of the oldest guys in the league at his position. Yeah. But they're trying to find some consistency, trying to find some footing. I think the problem is, if you have a guy like Bryce Young and you believe in him and you think he'd be the guy, I don't like benching him and then throwing him in and then benching in and throwing in. I think you throw it into the fold. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but he's your guy going forward. They got some talent elsewhere.
But until they play Atlanta, I don't see anyone being the guy that says, not the one, but a bunch of guys that go, come on, I dare you, come beat us. They've been beaten now for 4, 5, 6 years to the point you mentioned the Cam Newton era. That's gone.
Yeah.
And who's going to take control in a room or out on the practice field to go, we're going to carry this over on Sunday. And who's going to be the guy on Sunday? Bryce Young? Bryce doesn't say a word. He's not a raw guy. He's just, I'm going to do my job. And he's done it well. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong at all. He's a national championship, from college. But he's not the guy that, let's go. He's not that guy.
I think the issue for him was he never had to be, because at Alabama, you get Nick Saban. You know what I mean? You got 5 stars and All-Americans and first-round draft picks all across the board. So you got a left guard who's got that attitude, a tackle, a running back, a defensive lineman, a linebacker, a safety, whatever. You know what I mean? You got those guys. And a lot of it is because you have those guys at every position. He doesn't have to be that guy. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to be the rah, let's get it going. Everyone knows. You know what I mean? Everyone in the back of their mind saying from snap one, we're going. And he goes from being in one of the best situations in college football, if not the best, to being in one of the worst in Carolina, where ownership, David Tepper he wants to infuse a lot of money, but we don't know who the coach is going to be. We don't know what the identity is. And a lot of these guys that are in the room there in Carolina, like you said, they don't know anything but losing, right? They've been there for 3-4 years. That's all they've done. It's really hard to flip the switch. And I love what Dan Campbell's done in Detroit, because he said, hey, we're not going to lose anymore. We're going to change the attitude. And everyone says that, but he was actually able to physically go in and do it, where Carolina kind of needs that spark, especially because this division has been the most winnable division for 4 or 5 since Brady retired, last 3-4 years. I mean, this division's been wide open. The Falcons are begging for a competitive team. The Saints, I know they're going to be really bad, but again, they're saying, hey, we're a year or 2 off, depending on what happens with Baker Mayfield and this Bucs team, because they could have half their offense retire. Mike Evans might not be there next year. Baker, who knows? It's wide open, but as of right now, I mean, Tampa's been the most consistent. If you want to talk about dominance, it's just they've been the most dominant team in football as far as winning the division over and over and over again and doing what they have to make sure they host a playoff game in January.
Well, Kansas City will rival that last statement, but at least in the NFC, you've got a point there. And I don't see a whole lot changing. Nobody saw anything in Atlanta here of any of the starters, and there's a lot of defensive questions they still have. And the Saints are, I don't know if they're a hot mess, but they're a mess.
Yeah.
Right. You've got some issues there from a leadership perspective as well. And then Carolina, we just spent some time breaking them down. So pretty easy for me to think that Tampa is going to be the NFC South front runner. Anything can happen. We all know that. We've got 10 more days, Brian, before the season really officially begins, with the Thursday night game to open up week 1. Anything exciting for you right now that you can't wait for? Or is it just, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to wait for that. I'm going to watch that Thursday night kickoff and see what goes. I'm finally going to get to see some starters play some significant time. I think there'll be a lot of those number 2s and backups that are going to get some playing time. But it's almost here. The preseason has come and gone. We know it will. This is our last show for the preseason, and now we got to rev it up.
I will say this: if you're a fan of any team right now, the first 2 or 3 weeks, I wouldn't take it with a grain of salt, because, again, a lot of these guys, a lot of the starters haven't touched the field in the preseason. They don't have any real reps. They're going to be, the first game is going to be very sloppy. I think you're going to have a very sloppy week 1. I think defenses are going to dominate. I think you might see some shuffling of the rosters. You might see some guys, going back and forth, where maybe, hey, we play him, wide receiver more as a slot guy. This is more of our third down running back situation team. And, you hate it, but, teams are focusing more on health now. So the first at least week or 2 are going to be, let's figure it out. Let's find what works best for us. Let's get comfortable. And, a lot of new faces in new places, a lot of young quarterbacks that are going to be starting this year, really this year and next year. I think you're going to see a lot of young guys. You got Bryce Young, who's been there, but obviously Michael Penix, whoever the starting quarterback ends up being at the end of the season going to next year in New Orleans, Cam Ward in Tennessee, Jackson Dart, Bo Nix had a great rookie year. I think you're going to have a lot of influx of young talent, and I think that could be both very scary or very good for the league, depending on how good everybody is. But I'm excited to see a lot of young guys play, and the Super Bowl push starts. We got really 9 days, and then it's back in the swing of things, and it's good to be back.
Yeah, young quarterbacks in New York, Washington, Caleb, Chicago, New Orleans, Atlanta. I'm not going to say Carolina because I don't think he's that young, but that's 5 or 6 right there that if they get, that's just in the NFC. So I
Influx
agree with
talent.
you on
Yeah.
that point. All right, well, Brian, let's before we go, I want to thank the folks at The Nine Golf. If you are looking to improve or enhance your game from a virtual perspective, you got an opportunity to do so in a manner that allows you to check the ball and club speed, your launch angles, spin rates, your carry and total distance. You get to visualize what you're doing. Every stroke you take is it's videoed, and you can play it back over and over again if you choose to. The technology to improve your golf game is there, especially if you want to do so in the comfort of an air-conditioned room. You can go outside and hit 1,000 balls, but you can also hit 100 and get more out of it when you're doing it with the right technology. The TrackMan 4 and the Golf VX systems are at The Nine Golf. And by the way, they've got an upcoming tournament in just a couple of weeks. It's going to be September 6th, their inaugural fall tournament. You can receive a Wicked Weed golf bag from them and a complimentary trip to Asheville, North Carolina to the studio that they have there. Second place is a Callaway Elite driver, and there are other prizes like sleeves of balls and gift packages for The Nine Golf. You can visit them at the9golf.com. N-I-N-E. Please spell it out, not the letter 9, The Nine Golf, or go to their app at The Nine Golf for booking a bay, getting lessons, club fittings, or even a membership. And we appreciate them and all that they do for the show as well. Final thoughts, Brian?
A good preseason. A lot of stuff to talk about. I think we kind of covered everything pretty well. If we didn't, go ahead and let us know. But real stuff starts next week, so I'm happy for that, and we get to, we get some real critiquing and get to break down some meaningful football starting next Thursday.
Yeah, we saw plenty of things that we're not going to see for sure in 2025, but we know it's right around the bend. I think there'll be a few penalties, a lot more punts in the first few series that we may see in the first couple of games. But by the time after the halftime of the second week, maybe third or fourth, we're going to see some stuff that could be very, very intriguing for the entirety of the season. So for Brian LaBelle, I'm Harper LaBelle. Thank you for tuning in. This has been the NFL Preseason Preview for 2025, our last show. No more preseason, folks. We're getting ready for the real thing. So we appreciate you being a part of the show. We want to thank you for tuning in, and we also want to let you know that there'll be a tremendous amount of football coverage throughout the rest of the season on 100 Yards of Football. So for Brian and myself, have a